So we're beginning another week, but this week we're beginning with a feast. Today is the Feast of the Presentation. There are important things to look at here, besides the fact we have 3 readings. And as you know, I usually focus on the first reading, which is what I'm going to do. But in the second half of the program, I noticed a line in the second reading from Hebrews that I want to address as well. So let's go back to the first reading. We're looking at Malachi. And as you know, I use Dewey Raham's version, not because I necessarily prefer it, but because I don't have to worry about copyrights. It's a strange story. It's one that I really, to be honest with you, believe that some people will be held accountable in heaven for the rule. But in case you don't know, the Bible, in the translations of the Bible are copyrighted. And many publishers are very liberal about how their copyrights or their translations are used. Some are not. And so to avoid all of that, I decided, well, since copyrights usually end, I think it's 100 years after the death of the person whose work it is, and these are copyrighted in the 17th century. I think we're safe here with the Dewey Rahams, and I can make the appropriate corrections if I need to. But in any way, and when I say corrections, remember these are translations into English, and so I can look up the original Latin, and through that I can check out the definition. I don't speak Greek, but I can look up words and stuff like that in Greek and find out what the original word is, which I do quite a bit. But in any case, so we are looking at Malachi 3. Now, first, one of the things we want to look at here is what is the reason for Jesus going through the presentation. And you have to understand the presentation is his circumcision. So why is this important? And the importance is the key is it's not just, well, this is a tradition and we should do it and this would be a good thing. No, this is a very serious act because Jesus, remember, the reason why he is born of Mary is that he has to be fully human. That means he can't just appear on the earth. He has to be fully human. So he is conceived. He goes through what we call this gestation period, which is Mary's pregnancy, and he is born 8 days later, and it's required on the 8th day that he is circumcised in the temple. So, well, as best possible. In his case, obviously, it's possible. Many people would be circumcised by the rabbi who was local to them because they wouldn't make it to the temple because of their distance where they lived. But we all understand that. So, and this circumcision is the mark of the covenant that Abraham made with God. And so the firstborn, I believe, of every species in what we'd call today the Jewish world is required to be circumcised. But I know definitely, and all males, the firstborn is sacrificed, all males are, male humans are required to be circumcised. That's where it's going. Okay, so I had that a little confused for a while. Remember, I'm not Jewish. So they have to be circumcised as signs of the covenant with God. So this is essential. It is absolutely essential that this is going on. And so with that, we recognize this sign that happens, this sign with God, and Jesus has to follow those traditions in order for him to be fully human and fully divine within the context of the Jewish world. So this is an extremely important thing. But when we look at the first reading, we're actually seeing something that is a prophecy coming from Malachi. And he's talking about these powerful things. And he's saying that he is sending this messenger. And this messenger, now it's important to notice in the Dewey Rahams it says, my angel. This is significant. whereas in the more modern traditions, it is a messenger. That is extremely significant because Jesus was not an angel. There are non-Christian religions that believe that he was an angel. That means that you are not saved if Jesus is an angel. But we go to the modern translations and they say a messenger, which is true. And then you say, he will prepare the way before my face. And you will come to see that this powerful man is coming. And what is he going to do? He shall sit refining and cleansing the silver, and he shall purify the sons of Levi, and shall refine them as gold and as silver, and they shall offer sacrifices to the Lord in justice. And the sacrifice of Judah and of Jerusalem shall please the Lord, as in the days of old, as in the ancient years. So that's what we're looking at. The Lord is coming to purify the sons of Levi. Well, who is Levi? That's an important distinction. Levi is, part of this important reality. Levi is the order of the priests who serve at the temple and basically serve. Today, I guess we'd call them rabbis, but they were part of the line. They would follow their lineage back to the son of Jacob named Levi. And there they would be. So he's purifying. He's purifying his priests. He's making them holy because there is something coming. So we see that as an understanding that Jesus, who, by the way, is a priest in the order of Melchizedek, comes and he is the new messenger. Now, we understand this powerful reality. The prophecy itself comes from the 5th century BC, which is post-exile, post the Babylonian exile. It's in Jerusalem, so it's happening that this is the time when they're rebuilding the temple, and this is the message. So the people are coming in after the exile. They're not coming in, they're living after the exile, and the Lord is giving this prophecy of what will be coming. And we understand now that this prophecy is reflected of Jesus. And Jesus is coming to refine and purify silver, and he will purify the Levites, refining them like gold or silver. That is not a tradition, that is a common theme. There's the word I'm looking for. There's a common theme in the Old Testament of difficulties bring forth purification. And so this is what he's coming. He's coming to bring purification. And this is an important distinction. My favorite passage in the Bible is Sirach 2, verses 1 for 11. And I have it memorized. I first discovered it in the Navy back when I was a sailor. And what it says, when you come to serve the Lord, prepare yourself for trials. For in fire gold is tested, and worthy men in the crucible of humiliation. And then continues to talk about the purification of gold. That's how gold is purified, and that's how we are purified. And so that's an important distinction. And here we're seeing this powerful messenger who will be coming, and what is he going to do? Now, if we continue after the reading itself and continue in Malachi, and what we're going to see is he says, I will come to you in judgment and will be a speedy witness against sorcerers and adulterers and false swearers and them that oppress the hireling in his wages, the widows and the fatherless, and oppress the stranger, and have not feared me, saith the Lord. So there's an important distinction there. And so who are the people who God is going to bring to judgment? Sorcerers. What are sorcerers? Idolaters. Those are the people, the worst cases. I don't do exorcisms, but the worst cases that I deal with, people who have struggled with different aspects of the spiritual world, deals with people who are in that field. We call it the occult today. So that's a form of idolatry. So anyone who's practicing idolatry, because idolatry, I remember, had an interesting story. And it was the case of is someone dealing with a Ouija board, and I'm like, no, and I spoke to an exorcist who I happen to live with, and I spoke to him, and I asked him about this. Am I taking this too serious? He says no. He says absolutely not. And when you're dealing with things from the occult, you have to realize people will say it's a doorway to, and I don't like to get into this stuff that often, but occasionally you have to. It's a doorway to demonic spiritualities. Okay. Actually, as I've been told, there's no doorway there. It's direct contact. So, this is dangerous stuff, and to keep away from it. Adulterers. False swearers. False swearers are liars. That's what it is. This is from the Dewey Rams. In the New Revised Standard Version, let's see what they use as a word. No, that's right. It's not in that I'm looking at. Let me see if I can find an example here. Let me just move real quick. Oh, by the way, the other thing I wanted to mention to you about Malachi is Malachi means my messenger. It's not actually someone's name unless they were named Malachi, obviously. Let me see. Looking this up, and perjurers. So those who swear falsely, perjurers. You've seen that scene where someone's a Jew swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Remember that famous line from the Three Stooges. So perjurers, liars, people who will not only lie but make false accusations, because that's what a perjurer actually is someone who will make a false accusation, meaning will make a false statement in court, or will support others who made false statements in court and false accusations. And where can you see versions of that? Look it up. The best example is in the story of Elijah, when Jezebel, the queen, Ahab's queen, brings false accusations against Naboth and takes to force him to actually have him killed so that Ahab the king can steal his field. So you can see some of the aspects. So that's what we're talking about. Perjurers, people who make false statements. And then you go beyond. So it's not just someone who tells a white lie. So if you read that, I told a lie once. My mother used to always remind me. And I love this. I use this in examples all the time. Say, for example, someone's a secretary. And someone comes to see him, and the boss is in his office, but the secretary tells the person the boss is out, which is a lie. Well, my mother says what that actually means is he is out to you, meaning the person visiting. So in other words, the boss is in his office, but as far as you're concerned, he's out because he's not going to see you. So that's not a lie. That's not what we're talking about here. These are perjurers. These are people who make false statements that destroy people's lives. And then we have, and a false statement could be also in reverse. If someone makes a true accusation and someone else says, no, that's false, knowing that it's true, that's perjury too. So any kind of an official lie, perjury. False swearers is the way it is in the Dewey Rams Bible. Perjurers is a good way to put it. Those who deprive a laborer of wages is one of the lines. Let me see the actual Dewey Rams version here. Remember, this is the part that comes after the reading of today. That oppress the hireling in his wages. There you have someone, for example, and we've talked about this before, that hires someone who is, for example, an undocumented, I know the term is illegal officially, and you know why I use undocumented, because Charles Manson was documented, and the like, Jeffrey Dahmer, all the rest, but hires someone so that they can pay lower wages, not have to pay taxes, not have to pay workman's comp, all the other stuff. That's sin that screams out to heaven for justice. That's important. The widows and the fatherless oppress the widows, and not the widows and the fatherless, but they oppress the widows and the fatherless and oppress the stranger. Again, that's the same type of idea. There are people who are working every day under the table who are treated really poorly because they are an advantage to the worker. That's one of the reasons I've always said never work under the table, because it's no advantage to you. It's only an advantage to the employer. We're going to be back right after this. You're listening to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast. We'll be right back. Did you know that the Catholic Audio Media Podcast is available on various podcast platforms? You can find us, among others, on Podbean, which is our home platform. You can find it on Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeart, among others. Just look for Catholic Audio Media, all one word. On some platforms, such as Spotify, look for Catholic Audio Media, 3 words, and subscribe and listen to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at CatholicAudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out. Patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. We're back, and so we've been talking about that powerful reading from Malachi on the presentation. So we're seeing what is coming, and the messenger, which we understand is Jesus, is coming to purify and bring these people, in this case, the sons of Levi, to be good agents of the kingdom, which ultimately we're all called to do, who are servants of his people. So it's a very powerful message, and Jesus comes to bring a whole new world and a whole new understanding. He comes as a one in the line of Melchizedek. So the second reading has an interesting line here, and when I looked at it, sometimes you look at, you read this all the time, but sometimes I'll read something and I'll see it, and you go, well, yeah, but I read this all the time. How did I miss this? And anyone who works with ministry will tell you this if they study the Bible. Will tell you this happens all the time. And there's a powerful line I found here. Maybe it's because I originally saw it in the Douay-Rheims today, but I don't see how that actually would make any sense, because the wording is almost identical. So let me read to you what it says. So there we have the whole role of Jesus. And Jesus comes that he might deliver them who, through the fear of death, were all their lifetime subject to servitude. Now, in the versions you're looking at today, it says slavery. The words are pretty much the same. Instead of servitude, it's slavery. Basically the same thing. Although, understand that servitude, I'm not fully sure if servitude means paid or not, but slavery clearly means not paid. Now, I want you to think about it. He freed people who, through the fear of death, were all their lifetime subject to servitude. We could also use the term slavery. Okay, maybe I should look up the original Latin and Greek on that, but I won't right now. Now, why is that important? How many people do you know who are living in fear of hell? That means that they are slaves to this fear, and Jesus came to release us from that fear. This is powerful. I looked at this today because I deal with that all the time. Now, I deal with that all the time with Americans or even Europeans. I don't deal with that with South Americans because their whole focus is on the mercy and love of God. Whereas in the northern regions, Europe, the Western world, you have this whole focus on, I have to do the right thing, otherwise I may go to hell. Yet, if we see that's called slavery, and we're called to lead people away from slavery, because Jesus came to free people from slavery. Do you see that? That is significant. And this is one of the things that bothers me so much when I see how many people live in fear of hell. They are slaves to that fear. And so what happens is the sacrament of confession becomes the sacrament that helps them not to be afraid that if they get hit by a bus, they'll end up in hell. I remember a time, and I got so angry when I was teaching religious ed. This is before I was even in the seminary. And a priest came in and told the 8th graders at the time to say the act of contrition every night before they go to sleep. Otherwise, or that way, if they've committed a mortal sin during the day, they won't end up in hell. And I'm like, oh my God, this is horrendous. And I had to correct them, that understanding after the priest left, in a way that I wasn't saying don't listen to the priest, but they would understand that, no, don't buy into that idea either. No, it's a good idea to do an act of contrition before you go to bed. It reminds me of something else I heard from another one of these online exorcists that absolutely send me through the roof. Every time I see him, my back gets up. And he said something the other day which angered me. He said, you actually don't need to go to confession if you can do a perfect contrition. Now, if you can have perfect contrition. He says, but that's very hard to do. Actually, no, it's not. A perfect act of, now, first of all, I'm never going to say you shouldn't go to confession. I encourage confession, but confession is a way to build up your faith, to strengthen your witness. Pope Benedict said the whole thing of confession is bringing to the Lord your rags so that he can heal that and take that away from you. If I were to add on top of that, I would say bringing the Lord your rags and he can turn them into fine linen. That's what confession is all about. It's not about going to a sacrament so you don't end up in hell. Please stop thinking like that. It's about your love of God and wanting to strengthen your love of God and trust in the Lord's mercy. But when I saw this today, I went, wow, how many people, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, live in this terror of hell? It's horrendous. It's awful. And when you look at these people, and I try to teach a whole new way of teaching, but it is so endemic in people. And how do you get rid of this fear of hell? You understand that God is doing all he can so that you can be saved. It's obvious that's what the cross is all about. Jesus couldn't have done anything more for you so that you could be saved. And understand this, Jesus became incarnated. Now, one of the things I have said is the devil does all he can so that you will end up in hell. But Jesus did all he can so that you can be saved. The devil cannot become incarnate. That's what possession's all about. It's just so the devil can temporarily become incarnate, but he can't really do it. So the devil cannot give his life that you will end up in hell. Jesus does. So Jesus is the trump card. So if you don't want to go to hell, in the words of Jackie Gleason on a 60 Minutes interview, who wants to go to hell? Obviously, trust in the Lord, because the Lord is going to do all you can in order that you may be saved. I think it was Brennan Manning, who I think has passed away now, but he was a priest for a time, and then he left the priesthood, and he used to tell stories and tell stories. He still evangelized. And he told I think it was him, he told the story of being in World War II, and one of his friends, is a whole long story, you'd have to hear it from him. One of his friends, that whole scenario came in. Someone threw in a hand grenade, and one of his friends jumped on the hand grenade so that no one else would be hurt. And of course, it killed him. But just before he died, he says, "Goodbye, my friend." And he says that's what Jesus does for us. He gives everything he can that you may be saved, to free you from that slavery. But somehow, and I know there are priests, and I'll say this right now, some of these online exorcists, they're going to end up in hell for what they teach online. I'm not saying all of them. Some of these online exorcists, they're going to end up in hell because they teach people that the devil has more power than God. That's why please stop watching these online exorcists. And so this guy says, it's very hard to do. It's hard to do, to repent because you love God so much and it damages your witness. That's why I don't like the act of contrition the way any of them, and I hear enough of them. Any of them, because what you want to say is not because I dread the loss of heaven and the fear of hell, but more, but most of all because of you, my God, you know how that goes. But more importantly, because I want to be the greatest servant I can to you, and bringing your message of love to others. That's where it belongs, because Jesus does all he can so that you will not end up in hell. Keep that in mind. Jesus does all he can so that you will not end up in hell. But you need that relationship with him and trust that he's doing that. We'll be right back. Going back to receive your high school diploma can make a huge difference in your life. Not just for you, but for your loved ones and your community as well. Across the country, thousands of free adult education centers are ready to help with teachers who will guide you every step of the way. Find free and supportive adult education centers near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council, and the Catholic Audio Media Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon, patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media, patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer, previews of upcoming podcasts, previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com, your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out, patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. Well, tomorrow we get back into we return to our regularly scheduled readings. But tomorrow we're going to finish the excerpts we have from Samuel. Not tomorrow, I'm sorry. Tomorrow begins the last two readings we're going to get from Samuel, but we're going to continue with David. We're going to continue with David in the book of Kings on Thursday, and then on Friday we're going to start the book of Sirach, which is a wisdom book, and we'll see how that goes, and that'll bring us all the way up to the weekend. Right now I don't have a Catholic Audio Media weekend for you. Please check the others. Next week, we're going to be looking the week after. Yeah, next week. That's right. I'm sorry. Next week, we're going to be looking at Solomon and see the story of Solomon. So we're still going through this early days of the kingdom of Israel. And we're seeing that. And so we're going to get into Solomon, who was the son of David. Many people believe or actually, they know that he was the son of David and Bathsheba. Interesting story. So that's Solomon coming up. And of course, Solomon, this is next week, is the one we remember for wisdom. But we're finishing with David this week. We're going to look at Sirach on Friday, and then we're going to go and look at Solomon's story. Have yourself a blessed day, and we will see you tomorrow. The Catholic teaching in this podcast is reflected and presented as accurately as possible. The opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Archdiocese of Boston or any other institution.